Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente. This is Astrology Unplugged, session 302. So tonight, welcome aboard. Thank you for coming across from eBay. Thank you for tuning in live with us. If you ever want to join us live on Thursday nights Eastern time at 8 o'clock, just go to Google, type in Astrology Unplugged, and you will get the link there. You can join us any Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time till about 9:30. Tonight is a subject I've been meaning to have for a while. I had it a long time ago. It's a very difficult subject. This subject is so difficult. This is the number one reason that I have not written a book number 2. I've got a lot of book number 2 in me. I've got a lot of book number 2 already written, but I just can't get to absolute values. I can't get as convinced with these theories as I want to be, because this whole book would be based on this theory. And what we're talking about tonight is when you're stuck, when you think you're stuck, you're not really stuck. Some people are. So that's a real big deal. It's really at the basis of what I do. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Ksenia Moore was on show 300, and she's a marvelous astrologer out of Australia. And she was asking things like, what do you tell people when they think they're stuck with their finances, or they're stuck with their lover, or they're stuck with whatever? I told her that in my 40-some years, I don't look at that stuff anymore. I'm not trying to be stubborn or cute. I just don't look at that stuff anymore, because I see everything now in terms of flow. Are you flowing, or are you not flowing? Let's find Susan's camera and make sure it stops flowing, because it's making me dizzy. Would you please? Thank you. Lori, welcome. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so it's not a simple subject, and I'm sure this subject will interest Sigmund for sure with his mentality. But I've gradually through the years gotten away from, oh, there's a blockage in your garage, no wonder your car is sick. There's a blockage in your body, no wonder your body is sick. Blah, 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 blah. And you see many astrologers doing this, and I can't condemn them. I can't say they're wrong. All I can say is it doesn't work for me. And what I have found is when you're flowing, and when God's energies are flowing through you, and I'm going to use that big G word, God. Use whatever word you like. U for universe, C for cosmos, F for the flow. When the flow is working through you, your life works. When it stops, your life stops working. Period. That's what I found. So I want to talk a lot about that tonight. I definitely don't have all the answers. I feel I have some. And the reason I have not written book number 2 or finished book 2 is because I just don't have enough to be quite convinced. And maybe tonight will kick me over the edge. I don't know. But let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. I got several friends that do not have good marriages. And in their marriages, there's no more flow left. There's no more open love being exchanged. And I'm not picking on them, because it's very common with many relationships I see. And when the flow stops, you're dead. By definition. If there's nothing flowing, you're not alive. And when you're not alive, more importantly, it's got nothing to do with you being alive. It's the stream of grace coming from God is no longer going through you. And whether you talk about chakras, or whether you talk about auras, or whether you talk about energy medicine, it's all based on energy flowing through you from the greater outer reaches, whatever you call it. I don't know what it's called. And when that flow starts through you, you can all feel it. Everything gets better. And when it stops, the opposite. So you saw the picture I sent out of the guy stuck between the rock. That guy's stuck. We got to get in there with some soap and some oil and some real careful stuff and hope he loses some weight and carefully get him out of there. That's very difficult. But people use the word stuck all the time with me. Hey, Rick, I'm stuck. Oh, I'm just feeling so stuck. Oh, I'm feeling stuck. What do you mean? A couple weeks ago, was it? No, last week, when my friend Michael Weir, the hypnotist, was on, and a lady called in and said she was stuck. Then she describes stuck as, I don't have money of my own, so I therefore can't leave my husband because I need his money. 2, I got nowhere to go. That's not what I call stuck. That's what I call I don't have any money and I don't have anywhere to go. Now, I'm not getting on her husband's side, her side, anybody's side. But what I've noticed so much, and we've talked so much in the past several years about Pluto's favorite subject in the past 10 years, which is codependency. Pluto just can't stand codependency. And it takes its whip after it. It goes after wherever it is. But the other night I had a woman, and she's very, very bright. And she's turned on to this fabulous new relationship. And everything's going really good. And she's been sick, and all of a sudden she's healthy. And she's had no money, and all of a sudden she's got money. And I said, what did you do the day or two before you met this new guy? Oh, nothing. What did you do when you met this new guy the day or two before? Nothing. It doesn't happen that way. What did you do the day or two before you met this new guy? Oh, I broke it off with this guy that I've been trying to break it off with for 6 years. Aha. Major story right there. That's the story. Because when she was in it, you all seen it with your friends. You've all seen it with the friends that are in these relationships that aren't working, and they're all talking about, oh, I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to give it another shot, give it another shot. And you're sitting there thinking like, oh man, just give it up, give it up. And they can't let go. We understand it. We're not judging them. We understand it. We've all been through similar situations. It's very hard to let go because you're letting go of something that's got some love in it. There's love there, or you wouldn't have been in it. Oh, I broke up with the guy finally after 6 years of knowing I should. Then everything got rosy, and I'm not exaggerating. New guy comes to town, real good match, money's getting better, I'm starting to feel better, starting to breathe better, everything. The reason is simple, in my opinion, and I'm not claiming to be any guru or any knowledgeable spiritual person. I do think I know some things about spiritual growth, and I hope you could benefit from them. And I hope I can energize, talk with you on those subjects. I think I know something. I know enough to get a healthy debate going, and I know enough that about what real astrology is and what real astrology ain't. When you're in a codependent relationship, you are not alive. You're not alive. You got the source coming to you blocked, just like a hose. Take a hose, you cramp that hose. What do you got? It's that simple. It's that simple. And when you take that hose, you start to unbend it and starting to straighten it out, you start to hear that water in there flushing around, starting to seep through, starting to skip through, some's coming out the end. That's all symbolic of life flows getting to you again. And in every case where my friends that are in bad relationships, they're in relationships where they think they got nowhere to go. They've been emasculated. There's no life flow through them. These guys used to be up and walking through the woods all the time and hiking and having fun. Life flow, playing guitar, having fun. Life. Now they do nothing. They do nothing. Why do they do nothing? Because when they say something at home, they don't get a check mark. I saw a brilliant relationship specialist a couple weeks ago on YouTube. Imagine that on YouTube. And it was really, really accurate. And he said the number one, it was a she. This was really brilliant. She said the number one reason their relationships don't work is because we stop going there. Claudia's talking. Okay, honey, what do you got to say? Rick's talking. Claudia comes into my face. What do you got to say? Ooh, interesting. What happened to that guy yesterday? I go back to her. I get into her story. She comes back to me. She gets into my story. Sex, no matter what, money, stuff doesn't matter. You got somebody into your story, somebody interested in your story. That's what it makes a relationship go. And I thought to myself, that is so accurate because it's so simple. And now you all know one of the worst things in life is to be telling a story and somebody's in the room and ain't listening. That really sucks. It's not a good sign. So, what I have found with so many clients, you wouldn't even believe it. As soon as they get rid of the junk, I call it, whether it's a bad relationship, it's a bad match, or a job. I got so many people. One of the number one things I listen for is job history. I got so many people going to work, it's good. Going to work, it's good. 15 years, 20 years, going to work, it's good. 21st year, it starts to stink. Oh, well, what happened at 21? Surely must have been a planet. No, it wasn't a planet. Actually, it was a planet. The planet symbolizes it, but the planet didn't cause it. You're going 19 years to a job, everybody's treating you great, you get a lot of kudos, you're famous at your job, you're well known, you do a good work, good reputation. Year 21, it starts to stink. What happened? Oh, my boss of 21 years had to go and they replaced him with a SOB. And he's on my ass. That's no coincidence. That's a no coincidence. That's a great big deal. Why after 21 years do they bring in the SOB boss? Did you decide, well, I'm tired of having it good, I want an SOB boss? Yeah, you did. That's shocking, isn't it? what happens is you don't want to be there anymore. In every case, when I've seen somebody suffering, staying in the job because of money, because of insurance, because of putting food on the table, and in every case where they strayed to stay, what was on the other flip side is they didn't want to be there anymore. They wanted out. And I came to realize, because I was in management of a company for a little while, just a little while enough to understand how that mindset works. And there ain't nothing worse in a company than having people work for you that don't want to be there. There ain't nothing worse. Or maybe they're working actively against you. That could be worse. But when people want out, you know it. Everybody knows it, beside what they're saying. It's in their body language. And when you know it, you'll manifest the forces to get you out. So when I hear a guy or a woman go 20 years, everything's hunky-dory, year 21, which happens to be a Uranian year, all of a sudden they want out, but they don't want to get out, and they're going home beating their head. Why do I keep giving in to paying for insurance and to paying for food on the table while my life and the calendar pages are flipping by? And the answer is very simple. Because you got no faith. That's the answer. There's no faith. I was in the computer career for 20 years. My astrology is going on in the background. Had a young son, a young child. This happened to me. All of a sudden, I got a mean boss. And he came in, started blackballing everything I was doing, started bad mouthing me. I was very popular with all my users, took care of them. Everything was very nice. And he started undermining me. And I didn't realize it, but at the time, I really wanted to get out. So he became my ticket to get out. And I got out. It wasn't pleasant, but I got out on equal terms. And I came to Pittsburgh, and I think I'll do astrology. That's how the Holy Spirit works. And we make him do such guttural types of things to us because we're not listening. We're not listening. Most of us aren't listening. Most of us get this urge to leave the job, get in a Winnebago, travel around the country like Susan. Most of us don't do it. She's doing it. When's the last time you saw Susan on this channel with a frown on her face? She's been smiling for a whole year. She got out of it. She retired. She sold everything. She got the Winnebago, whatever type of device it is, and it went around the country. And she's just been smiling and drawing. It's not because you're retired. It's because God is flowing through you again. And he can manifest in millions of ways through millions of people that you can meet, philosophies that you can read about, all that. And yes, Marcia, we are happy for Susan and we admire and respect her. And she's lucky because a lot of people, I had a woman one time come to me. She came to me, a very pathetic woman, and she was dating a married man. She came to me at a festival. She's dating a married man for 20 years while he's married. She's in this 30-year miserable marriage. She won't get out of the marriage. She stays stuck to the guy outside the marriage. She won't get out of the marriage because the husband's got money. She doesn't have money. And she somehow thinks that money's going to keep her alive. Not going to keep her alive. So she comes to me with dumb question number one. Is he going to leave his wife? Answer, no, he ain't leaving. How do I know that? Because he ain't leaving. There's too many reasons why. Also, in reality, she really doesn't want him to leave. She doesn't want him to leave. Too much responsibility. So the whole drama is so intricate and so interesting when you really look at it. I know a story of a woman in downtown Pittsburgh. This happened about 5 years ago. She wanted to quit. She finally got through the major hurdles in her mind. She was going to quit her job. The job was holding her back. She wasn't alive anymore. She was going downtown and get her box of stuff up in the skyscraper and leave and go home, and that's it. So I'm really happy for this story for this woman. Okay, well, she gets to the day that she's going to do it, and there's nobody to drive her. Well, that's not how the universe works. The universe supports you. So out of nowhere, this guy, who she doesn't know, volunteers a driver downtown. He circles the block while she goes up, puts in all her papers, puts her box of stuff together, comes back down into the car, and she's retired and she's gone from this company, right? She didn't know this guy. And they're driving up the parkway. They're driving and they're talking about how relieved she is and all that. And all of a sudden, they start smiling at each other. She found the right guy before she even broke it off. No doubt about it. That's how it works. They started dating. As far as I knew later on, they were still dating, very happy. So it's very sad. It's, I feel for people, and astrology clients are real good at trying to suck you into their story. And I'm not getting sucked into the story because I've been there before, and I can't help you by being sucked into your story. And if you don't have faith that God's going to take care of you if you let go, then that's your issue. And I'm sorry, but it's your issue. Nobody can help you with it. Mom can't, dad can't, priest can't, God can't. You got to do it. And the big problem we have, how many people you see in this country say, let go and God will supply and God will be behind you? You just don't hear it. We're not that kind of country. We're getting there. We're getting better. We're getting a lot better. Relationship has the word relate in it. When you stop relating, there is no relationship. You got the same address, you sleep in the same bed. There's no relating. The relationship's dead, and so are you. So every time somebody tells me that something great happened to them, I ask them what they did the day before, and they always say nothing. And I go, yeah, you did. And they go, nothing. And I go, yeah, nothing. Yeah. Then they go, oh yeah, well, there was this crappy job I used to go to, and I just dumped it. I just quit it. So your trash can be all kinds of things. It can be a bad relationship. It can be actual trash in your house. It can be problems in your body that you've been ignoring. It can be all kind of codependent problems that you're hung up on. Well, you guys know when you got the flow, you guys know what the flow feels like. I don't have to fill in any lines. You know what it feels like when you got the flow. Most of the people I deal with, I'm age 71 now. Most of the people I deal with are in their 60s when I do readings, and almost every one of them is getting to somehow mid 60s. I mean, age 63 is a minor Uranus, square Uranus. It is a minor second midlife crisis. But most people in mid 60s start to loosen up. They start to let go of stuff that doesn't work anymore. And as soon as you do that, comes from everywhere. So, are you stuck? The guy between the rocks, he's really stuck. And you got to research his story to find out how he got there, because that was no coincidence either. All right. Most of us are not stuck between two big boulders. I mean, that's really heavy duty stuff. He probably had 50 warnings in a row and didn't heed them. So the final stuck took him away. Does this make any sense to what I'm saying to you? Okay, let's stop here for a second. There's not any hurry, any counter on here. Do you see this story working out in your life, in your friends' life, in your relatives' lives? How about the friends where you've been beating your head against the wall, trying to tell them something and they won't listen? And you just have to let it go. How many of you sing stories like this? Help me out here. I can't do all the work. Come on, Erica. Tell me your story, babe.
Oh dear, maybe this person will hear it on YouTube though.
Well, you may not want to tell that story. Maybe hide it behind a bunch of bushes and make it seem vague enough.
Well, it was a relationship and I had invested a lot into it, and we worked together, we lived together, we were remodeling everything together, we were building something together. And then I felt stuck in terms of leaving it when I realized that I had to leave because the loyalty had been broken.
Right.
And I just really kind of didn't know what to do, like where to go, what to do. And the person left the country for a little short vacation. And with them not present there, I was able to be clear, and to get my sort of gumption together. And, I called some friends. I went out, right away looking for a place to move into. From like a 4,000 square foot. Oh my God. John said David Crosby died. Moved out of like a 4,000 square foot beautiful home into a studio apartment that was about 150 square feet.
How did you feel? How did
But
you
I
feel?
was free. I was out. I took a few things and my life started picking up again.
Okay, now
And
one thing about this, excuse me, the worst sign in the world about breaking old habits is Tauruses. In other words, Tauruses hang on to the very end. They just hang on and hang on and hang on, and that's their strength. And it's also the power, their weakness. So we saw what happened when you broke that myth, in that people
there
came
was so much
apart.
invested. I just felt like I had invested so
Oh, yes,
much
you did.
building
Yes, you
in
did.
building what we
Right.
had. And then the only way that I'd be able to out to get a place of my own, because big place that I could really live for on my own. So there were two windows and people break
You're
in.
breaking up on me now. When you were in the latter stages of that relationship, did you see how you were kind of dead?
I mean, it was um, I was just really angry,
You were angry all the time.
angry, full. This
Right.
happened to me. Why did this person have to spoil everything we had? And being the way I, rather than, well, it is, and just get up and do something about it.
Well, you're breaking up really, really heavily, and
Oh.
things got a whole lot better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Erica, I'm asking if
Yeah.
things got a whole lot better in many different ways
Oh, my-
right away.
I can't hear you again because of my microphone.
All right, let's go away from you. We'll come back to you later. Is that okay?
Sorry.
You're breaking up a lot. We'll come back to you. Thank you. Now I know Sigmund had his hand up. Go ahead, Sigmund.
Oh, let me see. Well, there was I had this job that I was really good at and well respected, and the people in the county and the state loved me. They thought I ran the agency because they held the moral center. And one day the bosses let go one of the other supervisors, and I inherited his workload. And one of the people I got was someone who didn't know how to write a coherent paragraph that actually made sense and actually follow the dictates of the state and federal laws. And so I was working with her about this. Now, I could have fired her, but that would have been an overreach. And I could have written her up, which was no less of an overreach, but nonetheless. And so I said, no, you have potential. I know who you are. This is how you do it. Do this and this will work. So the next thing I know is the director of the agency wants to have a meeting with me at the end of the day. And I didn't put it together. And I went down to see him at 3 o'clock. I said, Doug, I'm ready. He says, no, I'll come back later. So I come in at 5 o'clock, and the HR person from the agency that bought my company is there, and they're telling me, well, they want to go in a new direction. And exactly. And I called them out. This is bullshit. Basically, this is about this woman who has the ear of my boss's pet, who everybody hated because she was the boss's pet, could get away with shit. So I put it on the table, and I told them what the truth was, and basically they had made up their mind that they wanted to go a new direction. In retrospect, I wish I would have asked them, well, what is that new direction? And just, poked holes and had some fun on my way out. But I was really steamed because I really liked the job. I was real invested in it. I was real attached to loving my people. And to this day, I still love my people, even though I'm not in touch with them. But so I was forced out, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and I could do stuff that I couldn't do with the constraints of a job. And one of them was to attend, how shall we say, meeting of like-minded spiritual people. And I went for a couple of weeks, and it was real interesting and this and that. And we'd talk about this, we'd talk about this, little exercises and stuff. It was an ongoing group. It had been in existence for like 20 years before I got there. And at the end of each get together, we'd form in a circle, just this large random circle, and we would, if somebody needed something, they'd say, "Oh, I need this," and people would send love to that person or energy to that person. We'd go around the circle, and in this large room of about 60 people, I noticed that I'd look up and there was this person standing across from me. I didn't think anything of it. So the next week we got together, another random circle. I'm standing someplace else, and I look up, and this woman is standing across the room from me. And so that caught my eye. The third week, the same thing happened. So I said, well, if and there hadn't been much interaction between us during these groups, and there hadn't been any distance, just no interaction. And so what they did the following week was they wanted people to buddy up and go over what had happened in the group that week. So they put everybody's name in a hat. And so I thought to myself, well, if this is supposed to happen, there's anything here, then I want to be together with this person. So on the third dip, they pulled both our names out. And this coming spring, we'll be married 25 years.
Exactly. Now think about that, everybody. And don't go off with this stuff that it's cute or it's a coincidence. It's way beyond that. And he was stopping it. He didn't know he was stopping it. And Virgos are real good about stopping it by staying true to their employees. And I stay true to my job. And Scorpios are dedicated to their job. And hardly anybody is dedicated to themselves. How am I feeling? What do I want to do? Well, that's a marvelous story, Sigmund. Just marvelous. And beside the wonderful pairing that it did with you two lovebirds, it validated that whole stream for you. It just validated it for you. And when I got thrown out of the computer field and I went to Pittsburgh with nothing, just a car and a few dollars, and I walked into a bookstore and I said, I'm here to read for somebody. Let me try to read for you. See how you like my readings. And that was 20 years ago, and it's just grown and grown and grown and grown. And I'm very happy where it is. But see, so many people, I spend so much time with Virgos like Sigmund who don't do what he did. And they want to know about their stomach problems. They want to know about their ulcer problems. I just tell them all of it's going to get worse. Come on, doctor, but it's all going to get worse because you're not flowing. It's not going through you. You're stuck, and you got some reason out there why you can't be you. Well, if you can't be you, then what choice do you have? I mean, it's a good question. What choice do you have? And when I got out, I started getting referred here and referred there. And Sigmund's turning it on with this woman and meeting all these people. Yeah, he did a good job at his former job, but he was required at a higher level, teaching meditation, teaching spiritual matters, which is what he's been doing since. Wonderful story. Sigmund, thank you so much. I want to get everybody in here. Yes. We love you. Claudia, please tell us your story.
So I was in a soul-crushing marriage for 15 years where I couldn't be myself. I felt so trapped. And I've always been a really spiritual person, but
you were trapped, Claudia. You were trapped.
I was trapped.
You were trapped.
I felt trapped. Anyway,
you sure felt trapped, huh?
Yeah. Well, the best thing that could have happened. I wasn't married to somebody that ever respected me and ever was loyal to me. And talk about being a Leo, like that's such an important part of
the number one word, respect. Yeah.
Yeah. And the best thing that could have happened And the most devastating thing at the time, I thought, but you know what, even at the time I was devastated. You know, he found someone else and it was a really ugly thing, but that is when I discovered astrology. My love for astrology just blossomed then. My whole everything just, it was like a river opened up. It was unbelievable. I literally felt like I was, part of me was dying, and now realize
Yeah, it
it was a
was.
very strong
Yeah.
Pluto transit, but it did, and I was never the same again. But
And usually what happens, guys like that go off into a relationship, it becomes extremely self codependent and destructive. Because
yeah,
they're not dealing with the problem.
no, it's remarkable.
Usually what happens.
That's another story, but yes. And at the time, I would have stayed in the marriage until the kids got older.
Oh, that's a good one, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, the kids don't notice it, and
right,
they're not affected by that bad marriage.
right. No, not at all.
Mhm.
So I was just so, even at the time, I mean, I went through a really devastating time, but at the time I remember thinking, this is the making of me. This is the making of me right now. And it
Sure,
was,
it's your
because
birth.
it was so my birth, and I wouldn't have done it, you know. And I people think I think I'm being facetious when I say that was the best thing that could have ever happened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it truly was. He he did me a favor, because
And
he did.
why didn't you leave earlier?
I was tremendous. I was scared to. And I thought I couldn't do it on my own. I thought, you know, that's not it. I knew I could do it on my own. I think I was just scared to put a stake in the ground and say, this is not okay with me.
And when
You are-
you did, I will guarantee you, go back and look at your planets, and you'll see a planet there that was, well, ready.
Yeah. Oh, I'll remember
The
the
planet
day.
didn't do it, but the planet symbolized that you were ready. And I
Yeah.
see so many clients like that are ready, and they come to me and they smile, and I smile, and I hand out diplomas. You
Yeah.
know, and they get a big grin and they go.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story.
My whole body. Yeah, I remember the day. My whole body, from the time I November 17, 2009, I said, you have to get out. You have to leave the house today. I can't live like this anymore. It was like my body just, it just released,
It
like
was
all the tension,
probably Uranus.
the anxiety and everything.
Yeah.
So that I got unstuck for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful story.
Yeah.
John, let's hear your story. Thank you, Claudia. It's wonderful. John, go ahead. You're muted, sir.
Well, I'm kind of a public person in a way because of being in the legal profession, so I can't say a whole lot, but I'd say this. I've been in 5 different jobs that I left, which were the same kind of thing. The last one I left, my boss called me after I quit in the morning. Why are you doing this? I didn't know what to say, but I just said, well, this is like a bad marriage. I just can't do it anymore. That's what I told her. She had mental health issues, but she gave me a glowing description because there was a newspaper article that I was retiring. They made a big deal about it. And she was so glowing in her praise. But each time that I had of these 5 different jobs, it had gotten to the point where it was just totally unacceptable. And I, moved on. And then one was a marriage, my first marriage, which was a train wreck. But I was very young And it saved my life to get out of that marriage. And in each job that I left, or I either left or was kicked out, thankfully, things got better when I got into my next position. But it's sort of like the spirit works and everything flowed. And sometimes something that looks like a disaster is a blessing. My life has been an example of what you're talking about here, where there's this flow and then something stops the flow and it's time to move on. And sometimes you don't see it, but someone else sees it and does you a favor and shows you the way to the door.
That's right. Sometimes it takes our friends.
Yeah. So I don't want to say a whole lot more.
Well, that's okay. We don't want you to get in trouble. And we see the point. That's a great, great story. And you're all telling stories that are right in line with this. Kathy, go ahead. Thank you, John. Kathy, go ahead. You're on now. Kathy must have a story for us.
Well, yes, I'm a Virgo, one of those who can't see or chooses not to let go and flow. But when my marriage ended, I felt like Claudia did, that it was a blessing, because I felt, for one thing, I went straight from living at home to being married. So I had never lived independently on my own before. So that was the first time when I had to do that. I had to take care of myself and my son, and learn how to live on my own and pull in all those resources. And it was interesting also how it really moved me along my spiritual path, because I didn't realize how much criticism there had been from my husband and how he was not present there for me. He was there for him, but he was no longer present for the marriage.
Right.
And so in making that change, it just opened new doorways and showed that I can really do a lot of things on my own and be very independent, and have really created a pretty good life from there. So, and I feel fortunate too, because I'm still friends with my former husband and even with his wife. And when he comes to visit here in Oklahoma City, I mean, it's not unusual for us to go have dinner or and get together, because we have a son together, so there's still that communication.
We still care about him, of course.
Yeah. So it was just, we couldn't be married. We could be friends, but we couldn't be married.
Yeah, that's right. And another story in all 6 of these stories, and we'll get to Linda because I know she's got a doozy. In all 6 of these stories, we see where the flow gets better, the cars get better, the money gets better, the living arrangement gets better, the skin gets better, the relationships get better, everything just gets better. And Liza and I talked a lot about this today, getting prepared for this. And it's just so sad that we're brought up in ways where the parents think the church is doing the educating, and the church thinks the parents are, the parents think the school is, and it's going round and round. And you find out a lot of times nobody's teaching you except for Fred Rogers. He's teaching you for how to deal with when you feel bad, how to deal with when you're unpopular, how to deal with when you're upset. Those are not trivial little eagly statements. You know, I got a radical belief. You can believe that?
Imagine that.
I'll give you one more before I go to Linda. Imagine Rick with a radical belief. I believe that bad criminals lose their rights to society while they're in prison. And I believe that they should be forced to watch Mr. Rogers all day. Or programs like that. All day, every day, with access to nothing else. Because all they've ever heard is the opposite. It's all they've ever heard. Or at least a great deal of programming like that, where they see people are treating each other nice and it's working out.
Mm-hmm.
You see this in prisons all the time. Thank you, Kathy. That was a
Sure thing.
Good story. I want to add to what you said. A lot of it's very tough for Virgos. It's tougher than any other sign because Virgos are so committed to doing a good job and they're really good at it. Thank God. And they're really good. And boy, people come to me, so many Virgos, they want to keep goddess happy. They want to do what they think goddess wants them to do. And they're really, really good.
Well, and Rick, I was married to a Taurus.
Well, that makes it even more grounded. But what happens is it's very common for the Virgo to feel like they're cheating somebody when they want to go off and do what they want. They think like they're cheating, they're getting away with something. And it's really not. And it takes them a long time sometimes to realize that God's will and their will are the same thing. Wonderful story. Okay, let's hear the doozy of a story. Look at the smile. Look at the smile on her face. Shelby, get your butt in here. Come on, Shelby. Unmute yourself, Linda.
She's right beside me. She's mad because I was late.
I know.
And when I
saw her.
came in, she was
She
sleeping.
wants on the show. She
And
wants to hear your
She
story.
walked around the back and she's right beside me, but she has to hear your voice. And when I first logged on, Claudia was on, and it didn't wake her up and remind her that it's time for astrology class. So then she heard you and she came beelining in here. So, and I'm apologizing for being late, and I might be for the next 3 or 4 or 5
Don't worry about that.
we have basketball study hall, and the only time I can really do it is Tuesday.
You
and
just
Thursday.
get here when you can.
So I didn't want to miss.
Tell us
So,
your story.
Well, this is a really good story
I
because
know I was central in this one.
you were, and it involves Pluto too, which is
Yeah.
like, you want to be ready for something, let Pluto be everywhere in your chart, opposite and square to everything. It was amazing. And this epiphany happened I called you. We did an appointment. I was in the parking garage at DuQuesne because I was at the 50th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination, the big forum that Cyril Weck did. And we had a break in the action, and I scheduled you because I was a mess. And I was a mess because I had left my marriage and dived right into a relationship with somebody who was, certainly not the person I should be involved with. And I had found him cheating. I mean, he was cheating, and it was really obvious. I mean, I didn't catch him with in person, but he did something that just was stupid beyond words. And I'm all upset, and I'm talking to you, and who's this woman? And she's a Pisces, and he's a this, and he's a that. And you just said, stop. Pluto is all over you, and this is about you, and you have to give up you didn't say it in this many words, but what it comes out to be is I had to stop being so dependent on relationships, that I had to sort of kick that Libra part of me to the curb and stand on my own feet. And until I did that, I had, I needed to not be involved with anybody. And then you told me to go back and look at every single relationship I had ever had with a male person, going back to junior high, and figure out what the pattern was. And I've been stuck for how long? If I started dating when I was 14, maybe. So we're talking 45 or 50 years. I mean,
Very common.
it was
Very common.
almost 50 years. I was been stuck. So I get into a relationship, I get married. And then 2 years later, I couldn't sustain it because I got married because I needed to be in a relationship.
Because you thought you did.
I thought I did. And then I'd leave that, and then I'd take up with another inappropriate person. Lots of drunks and nasty, abusive people. I mean, nice, but nasty, they'd be nice while you were dating.
It's very, very common
Yeah.
that Libras hop from the frying pan into the fire. Just
Okay.
very common, right away, from one into the next.
And for me, it was a combination. I mean, it was like Pluto blew up everything. I mean, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't stop crying. I mean, this was months like, it was months, I would like be sitting in church and I'd be crying and
Do you know why? Do you know why Pluto blew up everything?
because I hadn't been taking care of anything.
Well, it's because, yes, it's because it was giving you so many warnings and you weren't
Right.
getting it. So
Right.
each time it had to get a bigger, more dynamite.
And if, and really, if you had, I mean, I was in therapy at the time, but here's another good one. I've been hiding a lot of this from my therapist. I go to therapy every week and I wouldn't tell, this is the part I wouldn't tell her. I mean, and everything. I mean, I went in and I mean, and her pen was flying because I said, okay, here's 10 years worth of stuff I haven't been telling you.
Yeah,
she-
but the thing was,
Oh,
the
it's
thing was
floodgates.
when we met, you were ready.
I was right.
It was
Well,
that,
we had
it
been
was that simple.
we had been working on other things, and this relationship thing had been off and on the burner, and you kept trying to tell me.
You were ready. You were ready.
But seriously, if you don't take those Pluto warnings, you're going to get unstuck, but you're going to get unstuck in a way that you're not going to like.
Yeah, you might get killed. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
you
I
might
could've-
get killed.
I
That's
mean,
true.
if I hadn't been able to control my emotions during school, I could have gotten fired. I mean, the only thing that didn't get messed up in all of this was my work, because once I got in the car and drove to work, I could stop crying and be a normal person and present myself as a reasonable, responsible academic. And then the minute I pulled in the driveway, I was a mess again. It was like off and on like that. But
Oh,
because
boy.
I've got that Scorpio rising, so there's a lot of self-preservation ability in me. And the
I
Libra,
think we could write a book, the five of us.
oh my God, I guess it's the
Eight of us.
craziest thing.
Don't
But
you
it's-
think we could do a chapter each?
Well, I do think so. And I also think that people underestimate how valuable astrology is when your life isn't working well, because you
I have
can,
no idea. I have
and
no idea.
if I had listened to Rick like 5 or 6 years earlier, that none of that would have happened. But I wasn't ready
I'm
to
ready.
hear it. Probably. I evidently needed to be like an outer basket case for 90 days in order for that to, but what's
Yeah,
happened, I don't even really date. I have opportunities, and sometimes I go out and I have male friends, but I'm not interested in it because I'm still working on things about
That's
myself.
fine. That'll happen when it happens.
Or not.
I have so many readings now that are so similar to your story. And it's just wonderful to just sit back and be able to listen to these people liberate themselves, and I can just kind of validate what they're saying. Thank you, Linda. That's a really great story.
And Shelby says hi.
Shelby, you stay with Linda, don't you leave. Okay, now we gotta get to Susan. And I haven't asked Susan about her stories. Perhaps there's one.
Well, similar to what Linda said, I went through a double whammy from Pluto. First, it crossed over my sun, and then it opposed my moon. So that was kind of unpleasant. And in the process of that, there was the complete obliteration of the marriage, very sudden-like. And no, I mean, although I was freed from a bad situation, it took me years to recuperate from it. I did not immediately feel better. So I'm not sure that that's a uniform process.
I see what you're saying. And I think the reason for that is because of your T-square to Neptune. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's not it's not everywhere. And that might be my missing element here.
I think in my case, I had a hard time accepting reality.
That's the Neptune.
I thought I was grieving the marriage, and eventually I came to see that I was grieving the marriage I wished I'd had, not the one that existed.
With your parents, may I ask, was there with you and dad or you and mom, was there a situation where one of you was unwilling to see what was in front of you?
My mother was that way pretty much. My father was pretty clear-headed about everything. Their marriage broke up when I was about 7. My relationship with my father remained positive until the time of his death when I was about 19.
What about you and your mom?
Oh, that was a disaster.
Well, what happened with as far as denial?
She had no real concept of what our relationship was.
Hmm.
This sounds so bad to say this about your own mother, but she kind of gave me the creeps.
I
She
don't
was
think it sounds
difficult
bad. That's a normal response.
I couldn't get close to her physically. I couldn't be in her company for very long. And she thought that I was her best friend.
Did she think one of her mom and dad gave her the creeps?
Not that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
She lost her mother at an early age in the Holocaust. And
Wow.
her father, I think, was closer to her brother.
What sign was your mother?
She was a Libra, but it was Sun conjunct Saturn. And it was
It's more than that.
square Pluto. And
Yeah.
I mean,
There you
there's
go.
a T square, a really big T square, and she had Mars opposite Pluto, I believe, or maybe it was Mars square Pluto, but that was
I
part
don't
of the
know.
whole T
I
square.
don't do it. Well, thank you for that. It's a great story. Well, you see what we're all doing. We're all reporting the same thing. We're all reporting that when you're not yourself, you're prone to those kind of relationships, and they don't work. And during the first 2 weeks, the first 2 months, you're promising all this wonderful codependent relationship where the sex is wonderful and you're going to love each other forever. Then after about 2 months, it don't happen anymore. Then you start blaming. Well, you didn't do what you said you was going to do. And boy, does it get messy. And you take a look around you, take the widest angle lens that you got and back up and look around you, and you will see 2 or 3 of your friends that have very nice marriages.
Mm.
And you'll see a bunch of them that don't. Want a story about dodging a bullet? Rachel asks, do we want a story about dodging a bullet? No, we don't want a story about dodging a bullet. Of course we do, dear. Go ahead. You got to unmute yourself.
Okay, so I've been involved with somebody on and off since about 2017, and recently it was really interesting. Had a dream about him out of the blue last April, and then he reached out to me at the end of the month, and so we've been talking back and forth. And but what has happened is since then, his quite like verbally abusive father has required him to kind of stay at home and look after him. And that's been eating at him. And, I mean, I was kind of like on one part, flirty, and then on the other part, support. Well, gosh, like late last month, I mean, it kind of devolved to the point where he was jokingly calling me stupid. And that's one thing you just don't say to an Aquarian woman. You don't call her stupid, and so I mean, I stood up for myself. I'm like, I was going through I had to handle some legal things, some important legal things for my parents' estate before the end of the year last year. And it's like, I told them, hey, you know what? I'm in the fight in my life right now. Just don't have the energy to entertain your BS. I mean, if you want to think of like Job from Arrested Development and a cross between him and Roman from the TV show Succession, that's kind of character he kind of takes on. And from what it sounded like his dad was kind of verbally abusive to his mom. So I mean, it was like, oh no, we are not going to repeat that in this relationship. I have no history of verbal abuse, even joking. And so it's like, kind of cut off that communication within the last few weeks. It's just like, and he put it to me, it's like, are you going to stop being shitty to me? It's like, oh, whoa, wait a second here. What is, oh,
Please.
yeah,
Get
exactly.
some
So,
therapy. And do you see so much of this happens because we don't listen to ourselves?
mhm,
Until we get older and we got lots of boo-boos and
mhm.
lots of bruises. Yes, congratulations, Rachel. Very good for all of you. Oh, it's a good victorious statements. And I mean, I don't know where this comes out. Do we need to teach our young ones better? Do we need to take over teaching our young ones and realizing the parents aren't doing it? They're falling through the cracks.
He's a 43-year-old man. He should be able to figure things out by now, you know.
Yeah, but sometimes 43 means he's going on 7.
Yeah, good call.
Sometimes it is. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say, but I think the real point of tonight has been well displayed. So, in my opinion, it's not such a big deal where the planets are. Now, if you're having an issue like this, and then Pluto comes sits on your moon, or Uranus comes sits on your sun in the middle of it, that's very symbolic that you're ready. The big planets hit you when you're ready to leave. They're not out there to push you. They're not out there to threaten you. They're out there symbolically because your power has arrived. We've talked enough about what Pluto power is like, what Neptune power is like, what Uranus power is like. I got a couple now, they both got Neptune on their nadir. Everything's blowing sky high. I don't even know what to say. When Neptune's on you, I don't even want to talk because it's so hard to describe. Neptune's on his nadir, Neptune's on her nadir. They're having a spiritual crisis. So I'm going to end the show early tonight just because we have done. Pluto is approaching my sun. I will blow things up. Okay, well, Pluto is going to go into Aquarius. I know an awful lot about Pluto transits. I suggest you go through our videos and our articles we've written so much about. Pluto, there is no reason that you need to be afraid of Pluto approaching your sun. Now, if you got your head in the sand and you refuse to look in the basement, then you're in trouble. If you're willing, that's what matters with these planets. If you're willing to take a look, if you're willing to see where your own dirt is, if you're willing to see your own weaknesses that we all have, then Pluto will help you. Pluto will bring you strong people, strong books, lots of money, strong allegiances. It will back you up because it's your Pluto. And I keep telling you, and I'll keep reminding you, these are like shoots that come out of us. The Pluto shoot is a very strong shoot of a very beautiful plant. And like an orchid. And it's going to come up and it's going to be a beautiful orchid. And it's going to be unlike any orchid you've ever seen. And you cannot push it down. And you cannot direct it to where you want it to go. But you can sit back and say, okay, and boy, are you beautiful. And let me go along a ride with you. And I'll buy some fertilizer and little things on the side here. But these planets don't want anything except what's best for you. Sounds like a parent with a kid in college here. That's what the planets are. They're symbolic of life energies coming through you. And some of us get weird kind of plants, and some of us get weird kind of leaves, and kind of weird things happen now and then. Who knows why? But for the most part, God is sending these beautiful, beautiful miracles of nature through us. And it is our job, and what tonight is about, is to show you that sometimes you're intertwined with another plant and it ain't working. And it ain't working. And you have every reason to split it off, especially when you got young kids. Because he also has the intelligence to set you right. Look at what he did to Sigmund. To set you right with the right people. Look what he did to me when I answered a little $25 ad in the newspaper. It's that big. Would anybody like to study astrology with me? Well, $25 ad, and I said, I'd like to. And that was the end of that story. And that was 15 years ago. And it just worked out beautifully. So I want to leave you all tonight, because I think sometimes it's best to just, when you have a good vibe, to leave it at a good vibe instead of pushing this discussion. I don't know what next week will be about. I'm working on some things, but tonight was a really good, where everybody got involved. I really hope that the YouTubers can tune in and listen to each of your story. But in a lot of ways, we all told the same story. You know, we all told the same story. So, see you next time. Love and blessings. Love and blessings to everybody. See you next week, and stay away from that virus that's still out there.
Yep.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.